All right, you want to talk shit real quick before Josh gets here?
All right, Josh and I have a difference in understanding, so we're going to talk through some things here on the chalkboard. As soon as he gets back. He's got a much nicer beard than me right now, so he's got that advantage. We've got the schooling over him, so
he's pretty mouthy, isn't he?
He's pretty mouthy. No, actually, he's a...
Come on, you can do it, talk some shit.
Oh, he's a smart guy. He's got a lot of good experience. I appreciate bouncing ideas back and forth with him. My physics, engineering background, his in-shop experience. So it's a good discussion. I'm looking forward to it. All right.
Explain it to me.
So this is about kind of optimal spine on a compound. What does that do for you? And your experience is that having the optimal spine, you kind of get a boost in velocity.
You get a boost in velocity and a boost in carried energy over knock. Yeah.
This is what I think is happening. And I'm gonna start with say a longbow, okay, or traditional archery, where you're not on center. The nock's pushing towards the center of the bow, say, but the arrow's offset like this. So what you want here is what the optimal spine will do for you is when you start shooting, it'll flex the arrow, hopefully get you around the riser, and also after that flexing back and forth, it'll put it in a straight line. And if it's too stiff of spine, it's just going to shoot it off, in the wrong direction. And then too weak a spine, it ends up flexing too much, and it'll end up this way. So the optimal spine will get you, going straight here. In a compound, properly tuned, so that nock's going straight at the rest and everything's straight in line. The question here is, can you really go too stiff on spine? If everything's perfect, I don't really see a problem with being too stiff. And I think a crossbow is probably like that. Very short, stiff bolt, pushed in line, ideally. On a compound, I think it's really kind of the same situation. This is the way I think about it, kind of my understanding of what does optimal spine do for you. If it's too weak a spine, you're getting excessive bending. You're not gonna group as well, especially with a fixed blade broadhead on it. That excessive bending, it's just going to want to push the arrow off a bit more. So you want to have less flex. What could happen though is if things aren't perfect, there's a little bit off in your rest or your setup, a little bit higher force on one side than the other, say. A little bit of flex, I feel, could make it more forgiving and do kind of what this is doing, but on a very small scale. It end up going straighter than if it's very stiff and there's some imbalanced force on it. But I really feel like that's all that spine's doing for you. If as a result of a certain spine, you're getting higher velocity coming out of the bow, I think it probably just compensated for some imbalance here, effectively gave you more energy as you leave bow for that reason.
Can I tell you what I think it's doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I think it's doing when you have the optimal spine, first, this arrow's bending up and down out of a compound, not left and right. And as you find the optimal spine, the same amount is bending in the front as the back, so it takes less time to recover out of that wobble. When you have the inoptimum spine, it doesn't flex at the same point, like more flexes in the front than the back, so it takes longer to recover that wobble. And that's why I'm getting the velocity increase at the optimum spine. And that's why I fully believe that. I believe that's exactly what it's doing, and slow frames would show you that, I would think. I just haven't seen anybody show it. But that's truly what I believe is going on, is if you have the wrong spine, it flexes farther out the front and stops, and there's a different amount of flex in the front and the back, and it takes longer to recover that wobble. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just do this side to side, but you're right. In a compound, it's more likely
up and down.
To be up and down because of the force on the bottom. And I think whether it's side to side or up or down, that flexing just helps you when there's some imbalanced force that's going to want to push it off a little bit, and that flexing might keep it on straight.
Hey guys, we're gonna interrupt this video to show you, to prove to you how much love we got for you. So we made a video and said that any orders between now and the end of May, I was gonna sneak some broadheads in. Well, I'm actually gonna sneak more stuff in. I wanted to show you. If you made an order, you still got time through May 31st. I'm gonna put some cool random stuff and send you an additional package. So let's build one right now, and then I gotta make a bunch of these. I mean, a bunch, but here we go. So I'm gonna get you a Onyx membership for whatever state that you want. 20% off discount code to Vortex Optics. A Phelps diaphragm, the gray, it's an amp Onyx sticker. Discount code to the ElkCollective.com. A $25 gift card to blackovis.com. Be sure to use my discount code ElkShape to take an additional 10% off. And throw in a pack out bar from Wilderness Athlete. Sticker pack from Black Rifle Coffee Company. Black Ovis sticker, Black Rifle coffee stickers. I'm gonna get you some energy and focus from Wilderness Athlete. Hydrate Recover, trail packs, instant coffee from Black Rifle. The new Hero from Wilderness Athlete, just add water. One of these guys in my ElkShape camp made these little ElkShape clips that go on the side of your bill of your hat. Put quite a few of those. I'm gonna throw in a Black Ovis game bag. Broadhead, Throwing in a micro Hades 3-blade from Grim Reaper, 100 grains. Still got my 6-pack of iron wills that I'm gonna give away as well. A bunch of buck knife hats that are awesome. Numa Outdoors, we got their Numa lid. You also might be getting a Wilderness Athlete hat, this cool Wilderness Athlete hat, Black Rifle hat. Basically, you buy stuff from ElkShape.com that we have to ship to you, and I want to send you extra stuff just because I love hooking you guys up. I appreciate you. Back to the video.
I don't think that bending, whether it's here or here, I don't feel like that's helping you at all in what you want ultimately, which is more momentum downrange, mass times velocity. For instance, if there was no bending of the shaft at all, and it's just pushed straight in line and it comes out perfectly straight off your bow, didn't flex at all, why wouldn't that be better than having it do this?
Well, that's impossible. Why? Because it's gonna flex. Because you have mass in the front. If you didn't have mass in the front, it wouldn't flex. But when you have mass in the front, the back tries to push the front, and because of that mass, it gives, no matter what. Now, I don't know what you could create that wouldn't flex, but it's always gonna flex. And that's why having the appropriate amount of flex matters. If you have the appropriate amount of flex, the bend that's in the arrow recovers quicker if it's balanced right. If it recovers quicker, it stores energy more effectively and is faster. Everything else being equal, like we were talking about last night. If you have the same amount of weight in the front, but it's optimally spined versus inoptimally spined, you'll get a velocity difference and you'll get a drop difference, even though they weigh the same. They really think that's why, because it's flexing appropriately. Can you overspine it? Yes. But once again, if you're overspining it, but gaining weight in the arrow at the same time, that weight could be better used in the front of the arrow on an optimal spine. So there's a diminishing return at some point. That's what I think you got. If you can make an arrow that doesn't flex, I'd agree with you, but they're all gonna flex because of the weights in the front is greater than the mass equal, and it will cause it to give.
Okay, on a, say, spine is extremely high, right?
Yeah.
The flex would be just minimal. I mean, I agree you can never quite get to zero, but you can get very, very minimal flex with the higher stiffness. And the way to get a quicker recovery is to have the higher natural frequency, which would mean less mass in the arrow and higher stiffness in the arrow. Then it'll be a much faster recovery to it as well, sure. which is a good thing. The real question is here, what if you're infinitely stiff? There's really no flex, or it's so small, it's a couple thousandths of an inch, say, as it comes off the bow. Why wouldn't that be better than having some?
If you can do it without making it excessively heavy, I'd agree, but how are you gonna do that without making it excessively heavy? And I agree with the thought. The thought's great, but if you can't achieve that, then you still have to go back to adequate spine, given amount of weight, and not giving up an excessive amount of weight to overspine it without putting the weight in the front. There's an optimum point, and that's the matter of getting the right amount of weight in the front, offsetting the stiffness of the arrow per the GPI of the arrow to get the most efficiency out of it. I agree. If you could make that thing not heavier and not flex, that'd be great, but you can't.
I see what you're saying. So
we're stuck with what we have.
Right. So you're saying practically, you can't really get a lot stiffer without adding a bunch of mass in the shaft.
Yes.
Right?
And if you take the full mass weight out of the front and put it throughout the arrow to achieve it, you've then taken the driving force out of the front of the arrow when it hits something to continually going straight through it in an equal world. If you take parts of the equation away to have it make sense, sure, but if you're still counting the tip weight and the insert weight overall as a function of overall physical weight and a percentage, and take that percentage away, it's easier to deviate.
Yeah.
So if you're not giving up anything to get it, I understand. But if you're giving up something to get it, you're giving up the wrong thing.
Right. So I'm saying theoretically
You're saying theoretically. I'm saying practical
You're saying
application.
practically, it's difficult to do that, and there is some optimum. And I think I would agree with that, right? That I don't think being, say, one spine stiffer or so, or being a bit stiffer with a higher modulus carbon, but still maintaining the same amount of weight or low mass for the shaft, could be an improvement or no worse than where you're at. Practically, if you've got to add a lot more mass to get that higher stiffness, you're probably not better off overall for that reason.
So in the end of the equation is, if you can make a stiff arrow that doesn't weigh more, you're better off, but you can't.
Yeah. Well, you can with a higher modulus.
Yeah, but the lighter spine arrow would still weigh less if you made the higher modulus carbon. So it's a great theory, but unless you can make that arrow stiffer out of the same stuff without gaining weight, which you have to add thickness to get spine at the same modulus carbon, it's going to weigh more. What you're getting to isn't possible. Yeah, maybe it will be someday, but if we're still comparing apples to apples, the highest modulus carbon you can possibly get in a 250 spine versus a 300 spine, the 300 spine's still lighter. And if you're overspined to do what you're doing anyway, you're better served to put the weight in the front of the arrow, may make the arrow a little shorter, that sort of thing. You're still going to get a better transfer of energy. We're splitting hairs, but you're still getting a better transfer of energy more effectively. If there's more weight in the front of the arrow, everything else being equal, the static spines being the same, like your 250 at 29 versus your 300 at 28, if they're achieving the same stiffness, right? And there's more weight in the front of the 300 spine, even though it's spining out the same because it's shorter to compensate for it, that's a more deadly projectile.
Yes,
because it has that more FOC at the same weight at the same spine.
You know, now we're getting into impact and what does FOC do for you at impact. But just to finish our kind of topic we are on, if mass is constant in the two, then going, you know, a little stiffer, I think isn't a bad thing to reduce that flex. And I think we agree on that. And you're saying,
If you're not giving up something to do it.
yeah.
Yes, but you are.
Hold on. Give me all the numbers, and then we'll go to Josh. What's your arrow setup for elk?
Yeah, I've got really two, a 4mm and 5mm axe is what I'm currently shooting, but I'll just tell you the 4mm setup. Basically a G-knock or fire knock I've been playing around with. The vanes are 3 Max Hunters at 2.5 to 3 degree helical, a 250 spine, shooting a 75-pound bow, arrow's 28.5 inches long. On the end of that, I've got, for that setup, I'm using our Ironwill Snyder Core S135 broadhead, 15 grain titanium hit, and a 25 grain impact collar for 175 up front. Total weight's like around 505 grains. So that's our main setup for 4mm. 5mm is just the 5mm axis, same vanes on the back. And with that, I'm shooting the S125, 25 grain hit, 25 grain collar, so 175 up front. That's at about 525 grain arrow setup. So that's I have 2 arrow setups for my couple of bows there.
Love it.
For elk.
MFJJ.
Good.
Josh, what is your arrow setup for elk?
Well, what I'm going to build this year is an RIP TKO 250 with a 70 grain and 100 grain combination for 170 in the front with an SK2 flex fletch vane on the back, 15% FOC at 450 grains, period.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that archery nerd conversation here at ElkShape Camp. You saw it here first.